The shelter groaned as the outer wind slammed against its patched bulkhead, a sound like a giant animal scratching at a tin can from the outside. Jace Rennick sat slumped against the wall, watching the makeshift heater sputter like it was contemplating retirement. He muttered, "Yeah, same, buddy," and tossed another spent power cell aside. 3 left, maybe 4 hours of warmth. 5 if he skipped heating his legs, which frankly weren't doing much anyway. The HUD in his visor blinked with its usual charm. Critical systems failure. Survival time, variable. He blinked back, unimpressed. He dragged the shelter pod 2 kilometers from the crash site, uphill through a field of magnetic dust that clung to his joints like glitter from a very unfriendly birthday party. His unit was gone. The comms array was fried. He was alone, cold, and already starting to name the rations, today's entree. Half-burnt energy brick, a chewy delight he affectionately called regret flavor. Then the proximity alert chirped, softly, almost apologetically. Jace blinked. If that's another snow rat, I swear I'm eating it raw. The scan flickered, adjusted, and locked onto a bipedal lifeform, heat signature faint, approaching from the southeast ridge. Not human, not native fauna either. He pulled his sidearm and crept toward the hatch. The moon's surface beyond was a blur of shifting violet wind and refracted light from Zareth's 7 twin suns, one of which had the charming habit of randomly flaring. You couldn't even depend on the sky out here. She emerged slowly from the storm like a dream misfiled in a war zone. Slender, upright, wrapped in a dark blue envirocloak lined with frost. Her skin shimmered like polished mercury under the dull red emergency beacon, and long ears curved back from her head like sculpted wings. Her gaze met his, strange eyes, multifaceted like insect lenses, yet expressive in ways that stirred something uncomfortably human in his chest. "Hold," he said, raising the pistol. "Identify." She raised her hands, 4 fingers, no gloves. Non-aggression, Dralion exploratory wing, unit destroyed. Her voice was melodic, but there was steel in it. She took 1 step forward. He clicked the safety off. She paused. He muttered, "Because I get all the fun assignments." "Sure, Jace, go to the frozen death moon. It'll build character." She tilted her head. "Are you speaking to me?" "No, talking to the wind. It's the only one that listens." Another gust hit, shaking the pod again. The heater flared, died, and blinked back on. Jace looked her over. No weapon. Frostbite on the edges of her ears. Breathing shallow. She was either freezing or pretending to be very convincingly. He sighed and lowered the weapon. "Get in before you turn into a popsicle, but no funny business." "Define funny business." He pointed at the floor. "That's that right there." She stepped inside. The door hissed shut behind her, sealing the storm out with a reluctant wheeze. The temperature inside ticked up 1 sad degree. She removed her hood. Her hair was dark, twisted into something like braids but with thin metallic cords threaded between. He stared, she stared back. "Do you require something?" Jace blinked. "A therapist probably, but for now maybe your name." "Elira. Corporal Jace Rennick, United Sol Defense Force." He extended a hand. She regarded it like it might explode, then lightly grasped it with cool fingers. Her skin had a strange texture, like living ceramic. Her gaze darted to the heater. "This will not be sufficient through the next cycle." "No kidding. But I'm out of miracles, unless you've got a backup son in your pockets." She didn't laugh, he sighed. "I'm saying we're screwed." She nodded solemnly. Yes, screwed, understood. He collapsed onto the crate beside the heater and gestured for her to sit. She did, carefully, placing her cloak between her and the floor like it might offend her dignity. Jace reached into the ration drawer and tossed her a thermal bar. She sniffed it. Edible. That's a generous word. Technically, yes, emotionally. Deeply traumatic. She bit into it. Didn't flinch, he frowned. "You just ate that like you've chewed through engine parts." "It is similar." "Wow, okay. Remind me never to piss off your dental hygiene routine." They sat in silence, listening to the heater wheeze. The shadows danced around them like half-forgotten memories. You will lose toes without heat, she said. Thanks, very uplifting. I suggest physical contact. Body heat exchange is logical. Jace stared. Okay, first of all, could you not make that sound like a lab experiment? It is a lab experiment. He blinked. No wonder your dating scene must be so lively. She laid down beside him, the movement precise, almost ritualistic. He stiffened. You sure about this? You are warm, I am not. This is not complex. Right, just another Tuesday in space. They lay there, awkward at first. Her back touched his arm. Her skin was cold, almost shockingly so. He grunted. You're like a walking air conditioner. You radiate like a small sun. I'll take that as a compliment. You should. After a few minutes, her breathing slowed. He could feel her muscles relax. Her ear twitched once, brushing against his neck. He tried not to shiver, or laugh, or think about how weird this was. He stared at the cracked ceiling of the pod and whispered, You know, I used to think aliens would look like tentacles. Or blobs, or those things in the cartoons with 30 eyeballs. She mumbled, half asleep, That is offensive. Noted, I'll update the intergalactic handbook. A beat passed. You snore, he asked, uncertain. I have never shared sleeping quarters. Great first-timer, no pressure. He closed his eyes. The storm outside howled like a dying god. Inside, the silence stretched, broken only by the quiet rhythm of two-stranded creatures finding warmth where none should be. The next morning, or what passed for morning on a moon with erratic day-night cycles, Jace woke up with someone's elbow in his ribs and a strand of metallic hair tickling his chin. For a solid 5 seconds he wondered if he died and was now haunting an avant-garde alien opera. Elira stirred. Her eyes opened slowly, unfocused. Your heartbeat is irregular. Jace blinked. Good morning to you too. You were dreaming. You muttered about cheese goblins and war crimes involving mayonnaise. That's just my subconscious working through childhood trauma, or last week's rations. She sat up in one smooth motion, stretching like a cat engineered by a precision robotics company. He groaned and followed her lead, rolling off the crate like a man 40 years older than he was. His back popped. Twice. I think your cloak tried to strangle me in my sleep, he said. It is reactive fabric. It may have interpreted your movements as hostile. Glad to know your fashion choices come with built-in combat instincts. She inspected the heater. It is at 17% capacity. We will require body contact again tonight. Well, don't sound too excited about it. I am Dralion. We do not express excitement. You're missing out. Humans are great at excitement. We built entire amusement parks just to simulate screaming in terror for fun. That explains your species. He raised a brow. That sounded suspiciously like a burn. She blinked. A what? An insult, a friendly one. Then yes, that was a burn. Welcome to banter. You're now 3% more human. She stood and moved to the hatch. The exterior sensors showed clearer skies for the next 4 hours, still freezing, still radioactive in patches, but at least not trying to kill them with lightning made of hydrogen plasma. I will scan for debris from your craft, she said. Jace grabbed his rifle and followed. I thought you weren't going to pull the whole noble warrior scouting alone move. You require supervision. Says the woman who tried to spoon me with her cloak. Would you prefer I leave you behind? Lead the way, Princess Pointy Ears. She said nothing, but he was almost sure one ear twitched in amusement. They crossed a frozen ravine with low gravity assist boosts, bounding over the chasm like awkward gazelles in power armor. Jace's boot caught a ridge. He landed face first in the snow-like powder. Smooth, Elira said, peering down at him. Doing recon on ground texture, thorough science. You are a hazard to yourself. They reached the debris field where part of Jace's dropship had cratered. Twisted metal, exposed wiring, and half-melted panels spread across the impact site like spilled organs from a dying machine. Elira crouched beside a data core unit still sparking feebly. Is it salvageable? He asked. Possibly, but it will require heat, clean energy, and shielding from magnetic flux. We will need to bring it back. You're saying I have to carry the radioactive toaster. Awesome. You are built for burden, I will guide. That's my epitaph. Here lies Jace, carried the toaster of doom, died as he lived sarcastically. She tilted her head. I do not understand funerary humor. Don't worry, I'm here all week. Back at the pod, they spent hours rigging a makeshift stabilizer out of broken med scanners and a chunk of Elira's communicator crystal. She handled the components with meticulous care, occasionally humming, a faint harmonic vibration that resonated in the alloy she touched. Jace listened, pretending not to be fascinated. Is that a lullaby? It is a bonding frequency. It encourages cooperation between materials. I just yell at things until they work. Sometimes I bribe them with energy cells. You are inefficient but persistent. I get that a lot. By late cycle, the data core was humming quietly in the corner, shielded and slowly recovering power. The heater wheezed along. They sat beside it, shoulder to shoulder, each pretending not to acknowledge the other's proximity. Your people, she said suddenly, do you often sleep beside strangers in survival situations? He shrugged, only if we like them. She turned her head, you like me. He coughed, I mean you haven't killed me, that's a strong start. Also you didn't steal my socks, that's trust. I do not require socks. And yet, here we are, building emotional intimacy over thermal accessories. She looked thoughtful. In Dralian custom, sharing sleep space is considered a high form of trust, almost sacred. He raised an eyebrow. So last night was like, what, a bonding ritual? In certain interpretations, yes. Great. I've accidentally married a space warrior. Do you object? He hesitated. I mean, I've had worse roommates. They stared at each other for a moment too long. Then the heater made a dramatic sputtering sound and spat out a puff of smoke. Jace groaned. That's it, it's over. The warmth gods have forsaken us. I will fetch the cloak. Is this the part where we recommence the sacred body heat ritual? Yes, but I will not spoon you. Your back is bony. I can't believe I'm being negged by an alien. She lay down first this time, draping her cloak over both of them. Jace followed, lying close but not too close. Tomorrow, he said softly, we try the long-range beacon again. Maybe the core has enough juice. If not, then we keep each other alive, and you keep mocking my spine. Deal. The wind howled again outside. The pod trembled, but inside for a few quiet hours there was peace, strange peace. The kind born from shared silence, mutual mockery, and accidental interspecies rituals. Jace closed his eyes. Hey, Elira. Yes. If I dream about cheese goblins again, promise not to use it against me. No promises. And for the first time since the crash, he laughed himself to sleep. The beacon came to life with all the enthusiasm of a hungover vending machine. Jace tapped it gently, then not so gently, then finally slammed it with the butt of his rifle. A blue light flickered on the console. Elira tilted her head. You intimidate technology into obedience. Works 9 out of 10 times. The 10th time I get electrocuted. It's all about averages. The beacon pinged again, louder this time. A signal pulse reached into orbit, threading through layers of interference and ionized storm residue. Jace exhaled. That's it. Rescue's officially on the table. Elira didn't answer. She stood at the viewport watching the sky boil in slow motion. Pale tendrils of radiation danced along the storm edge. He stepped beside her. You worried? I do not fear rescue. Okay. Then why do you look like someone just told you the station cafeteria only serves nutritional foam? She turned, expression unreadable. We are comfortable here. Well, yeah, if your definition of comfort involves broken heaters, aggressive gravity, and spooning a sarcastic human for warmth. It is not unpleasant. Jace blinked. Did you just say you enjoy my company? I said it is not unpleasant. I'm writing that down as a compliment. He walked to the data core and checked the diagnostics. The decrypted logs still looped error strings, but enough had come through to confirm his suspicions. The crash hadn't been accidental. There was interference, purposeful distortion of navigation systems, not just from the storm. Someone wanted them downed. You ever heard of frequency jamming drones cloaked as weather anomalies? He asked. Elira's ears twitched. That is a war tactic outlawed by 3 interstellar accords. So naturally, someone's using it. Human faction. Doubt it, we barely get along with our own species. And if this were a human trap, they'd at least try to sell us something first. She crouched beside the signal terminal, running her fingers along the interface. The beacon pulse flickered again, then another ping returned. This one sharper. More precise. Contact, she said. Short-range shuttle, not military signature. Could be scavengers. Or worse. Jace slung his rifle. Great, and here I thought today would be boring. They waited by the pod as the shuttle descended, sleek, unmarked but clearly advanced. Plasma dampeners muffled its landing. Elira watched it with narrowed eyes. Jace shifted beside her, muttering, "If they start monologuing about the future of evolution, I'm shooting first." The shuttle hatch hissed open. 2 figures emerged. Tall, armored faces hidden behind polarized visors. One of them raised a hand. "Survivors of the Zareth 7 crash," the voice echoed through an auto-translator. "You are to be extracted under Protocol Theta V." Elira stepped forward. Identification. Non-aligned coalition retrieval. We respond to distress beacons. Compliance is mandatory. Jace whispered, "They sound friendly. Like tax collectors with stun grenades." Elira didn't move. "Show clearance." The figure hesitated. Then Elira moved. Fast. One moment she stood beside Jace, the next she'd flipped over a crate and was behind the nearest soldier, disarming him with terrifying efficiency. Jace dove left as a plasma burst scorched the ground where he'd stood. He fired twice, warning shots, mostly to remind them he had a gun and a terrible aim when angry. "Non-lethal," Elira said, ducking behind cover. "I'm not trying to kill them, just emotionally damage them." The second figure backed toward the shuttle. Elira caught the first by the arm and jabbed something into the suit, one of her interface crystals. The visor flickered, then collapsed into static. The soldier slumped, systems offline. The other fled. Jace stood panting. What just happened? They were not rescuers. You don't say. She knelt and extracted the crystal. The suit contained frequency-modulating tech. Jammer grade, they caused the crash. So we just knocked out the people trying to kill us. We may have started a diplomatic incident. Well, at least we're consistent. They dragged the unconscious soldier into the pod and bound him with spare insulation wiring. Elira tapped into the helmet logs, filtering through encrypted commands. The data was fragmented, but one phrase kept repeating. Project Convergence. Subject 2137. Jace leaned over. "You think that's you?" "No, it's you." "I'm flattered." They were testing cross-species proximity endurance. He frowned. "Wait. You mean our sleepover might have been part of an experiment?" "Unclear, but your biology was under surveillance." So they had minutes before another vessel responded. Jace groaned. "You ever have a normal day?" "No, this is typical." They prepped for departure. The shuttle was intact, its autopilot system passable. Elira piloted, Jace armed what weapons still functioned. As the engines roared to life, the pod, home for too many nights, shrank behind them. Jace looked back once. "You know, I'm gonna miss that rusty can." Elira said nothing, but her ears flicked toward him. They broke through the clouds and entered low orbit. The stars spun differently from up here, sharper, more distant. "So," Jace said, "once we find out who's behind this, any chance we don't start an interstellar war?" "Statistically improbable." "I figured." The shuttle blinked into faster-than-light acceleration. Jace leaned back in the seat and muttered, "If I find out this was all a government cuddle experiment, I'm suing someone." Elira adjusted their trajectory. "Perhaps we should continue sharing quarters, for strategic consistency." "Sure. Strategic cuddling, that's a solid defense protocol. I will draft a report." He smiled. Not because things were safe, they weren't, but because the weirdest chapter of his life had just upgraded from survival to something else. He just hadn't figured out the name for it yet. The docking clamps latched onto the hull with a hiss that echoed through the shuttle like a disappointed sigh. Jace stared out the viewport as Futuristic Station came into view, an orbital labyrinth of rotating spires, artificial rings, and luminescent energy panels that blinked like the universe's least coordinated disco. The station's perimeter drones scanned them for weapons, pathogens, and probably the sins of their ancestors. Jace muttered, "They'd better have coffee. I'm not doing another debriefing on an empty stomach." Elira adjusted her translation collar. "You are anticipating bureaucracy. I'm anticipating the exact number of forms it takes to kill a man from boredom." The airlock opened. They were met by a humanoid with translucent skin and a dozen bioluminescent veins pulsing like a jellyfish with a management degree. It spoke in fluid, reverb-heavy common. "Welcome to Futuristic. Identify species, reason for arrival, and any residual emotional trauma." Jace blinked. "A human rescuee. Moderate emotional trauma, mostly cuddle-related." Elira added, "Dralian survivor. Lingering existential clarity." The attendant nodded solemnly and handed them 2 information tablets. "You've been assigned quarters in Ring Segment 12, Section Delta. Report to Interspecies Liaison Hub for processing. Please avoid making physical contact with the cleaning drones. They bruise easily." Their assigned quarters were surprisingly spacious. 2 rooms connected by a common area with a panoramic view of the station's central grav core. Jace flopped onto the zero-G hammock and grunted. "I'm not leaving this until someone promises me a meal that doesn't glow in the dark." Elira examined the wall interface, her fingers navigating menus with alarming precision. "I have ordered nutritional packages based on human preferences. Also, entertainment programming." Jace raised an eyebrow. "What kind of entertainment?" A screen blinked on. A Dralian documentary titled "The Behavioral Inconsistencies of the Human Sleep Ritual." He squinted. "Is this about me?" The narrator's voice began. "Observe the human male. He struggles against the inevitable pull of unconsciousness, often fighting sleep through the consumption of glowing screens and caffeine." Elira sat calmly, watching with academic interest. "I regret everything," Jace said. A message pinged on the room console, official summons to the liaison hub, accompanied by a note, "Bring your bonding partner. Observational data confirms cohabitation." Jace groaned. "I knew we should have lied about separate quarters. We were observed entering together, and exiting, and sharing rations. It is documented. They make it sound like we're dating. Are we not?" He choked. "We're fugitives with shared trauma and one blanket. That doesn't scream romance." "It does to my people." They walked the curved corridor to the liaison hub, passing various species. Tall insectoid bipeds with translator pods, floating spheres emitting musical tones, even a bipedal lizard wearing a lab coat and drinking something suspiciously bubbly. The council chamber was shaped like a star, with 5 points, each representing a dominant species alliance. A panel of representatives sat in silence, watching as Jace and Elira stepped forward. One of them, a 4-eyed cephalian with a diplomatic sash, leaned in. "You are Corporal Jace Rennick and Elira of House Enthal, survivors of the Zareth 7 crash, engaged in experimental proximity protocols." Jace whispered, "That's the worst pickup line I've ever heard." Elira replied, "This is formal." Another counselor chimed in. "Our records show significant deviation from expected interspecies interaction norms, physical proximity, emotional dependence, shared nutrition, thermal entanglement." Jace blinked. "Thermal what now?" Elira calmly replied, "We slept beside each other." Murmurs rippled across the chamber. The cephalian raised a tendril. "This complicates current diplomatic models." Jace scratched his head. "You mean because we didn't try to kill each other on sight? Because you bonded, without sanction, without genetic filtration, without psychological partitioning. So, because we liked each other, the counselors exchanged glances. "We have protocols for integration," one of them finally said. "But this is improvisation. It's dangerous. It's emotional." Jace folded his arms. "You're telling me peace is risky." The room fell silent. The Cephalian finally said, "You are to undergo observational cohabitation. Continue living together. Your interactions will be monitored for further data." Jace snorted. "So, we're officially science experiments again. Voluntary science experiments, with comfortable quarters. And if we say no, you are free to decline, but declining may lead to reassignment, separation, reevaluation of your legal status." Jace looked at Elira. She met his eyes. He shrugged. "Guess we're roommates again." Their return to quarters was less dramatic. Jace slumped into the chair. Elira brewed some sort of Dralion calming tonic that smelled faintly of old batteries and mint. Jace took a sip and gagged. "This tastes like regret. It reduces emotional spikes." "Great, I'll chase it with ice cream and denial." Later they reviewed the surveillance notice, a small hover drone now hovering above their couch. Jace pointed. "Should we name it?" "I suggest Observation Unit 6B. I was thinking Buzzkill." The drone chirped in what might have been judgment. That night they lay in their separate rooms with the door cracked open. Jace couldn't sleep. The silence of the station was too clean, too perfect. No howling wind, no failing heater. Just regulated air and artificial gravity humming like a lullaby with no soul. Elira stood in his doorway. "You are restless. Can't sleep without the death moon ambience." She entered quietly and sat on the edge of his bed. "You miss the storm. I miss the certainty. When the world's trying to kill you, at least you know where you stand." She nodded. "Here we are safe but uncertain." He looked at her. "You want to stay again?" "I would prefer it." He shifted. "I won't tell the drone." She lay beside him. The lights dimmed. The drone blinked twice. He whispered, "If they use this footage for a training video, I want royalties." And in the stillness, they both found sleep, not out of necessity but choice. The holographic camera hovered silently in the corner, blinking its little red eye as Jace poured himself a steaming cup of station-grade synthetic coffee, which tasted marginally better than hydraulic fluid. Elira stood at the console, her fingers dancing over Dralion input patterns faster than his eyes could track. "Buzzkill-S watching again," he muttered, nodding at the drone. "It has not ceased watching," she replied without looking up. "You scratched your ear for 6 minutes yesterday. It filed a behavioral anomaly report." "I was itchy. I'm a mammal. That's not espionage, it's hygiene." The data was inconclusive. They had been on Virespira Station for 21 cycles. Their observational cohabitation had become a wildly popular internal case study, viewed, debated, and analyzed by over 600 different research departments. One even tried to publish a paper titled "The Thermal Alliance: Cross-Species Psychological Synchronization via Shared Sleep." Jace had autographed it out of spite. The council had extended their assignment again. Their quarters had been upgraded. Buzzkill was now accompanied by 2 newer drones, DramaCam and Snormetrics, and every interaction they had was catalogued under Sentient Interrelation Trial Theta 94. Jace slumped onto the couch. "You think they're ever gonna stop watching us and let us go back to being nobodies?" "Unlikely. You are statistically entertaining." "That was my backup career, being statistically entertaining." She turned toward him. "There has been a decision." He blinked. "What kind of decision?" "They are proposing to formalize our partnership as a prototype diplomatic bridge." He laughed. "You mean like an official title? Ambassadors of shared blankets. They are calling it Dual Entity Interface Liaisons." "That sounds like a failed prog rock band." "It is a significant offer. You will represent humanity in long-term Dralion alliance testing. With me." He looked at her. "Wait, is this permanent?" Her ears flicked once. "It can be." He didn't respond immediately. Instead, he stared at the cup in his hands like it held the secrets of the galaxy. Then he sighed. I never asked for any of this. I just wanted to survive that moon, fix the beacon, and maybe retire somewhere with breathable air and no conspiracy drones. You adapted. I got stuck in a pod with a woman who doesn't blink and critiques my spine alignment while we sleep. You complain, yet you did not request reassignment. I didn't want to, he stood. I don't want to. Buskill zoomed in dramatically. Elira raised an eyebrow. You are being recorded. I know, let them record this. I spent most of my life trying to be useful. A weapon, a number, a grunt in a file. But when I was out there freezing to death and you curled up beside me with that ridiculous murder cloak, I felt like I mattered, not as a soldier, as someone. She stepped forward. You mattered to me. They stood like that for a while. Neither moved. The drones beeped quietly, then respectfully backed away to give them some space. He smirked. So what do we tell the council? That we accept. Yes, I have concluded you are preferable to other humans. You are emotionally durable and possess satisfactory scent. I think that's the most romantic thing you've ever said. I am evolving. He grinned. You really are. They spent the next 3 cycles drafting what would become the first ever joint psychological linguistic communication protocol between species cohabiting outside wartime. The thermal cohabitation clause became standard for long-term mixed-species missions. Their personal log series, Sleeping with the Enemy, a peaceful guide, was published anonymously but became a viral sensation in several quadrants. The council lifted full surveillance. Buskill retired to an observation lab, now filled with fan mail. On their last night in the observation suite, Jace lay in the center of the bed, arms behind his head, staring at the ceiling. I never told you what I dreamed about after that first week. Elira rested beside him, cloak draped over them both. Tell me. I was back on Zareth 7, but it was quiet, no storms, the sky was clear. And there was music, some weird alien harmony humming through the rocks. You were there, you were smiling. I do not often smile. You did in the dream. I will practice. No need. You're getting good at this whole emotion thing. She closed her eyes. You helped. The lights dimmed automatically. The hum of the station softened. Somewhere across the modules, a research